And here you have a few external views of the window. And then you have the facade itself, which, while not a fenestration singularly, it is a brise-soleil with these kind of openings on it. And you can see the way the light kind of falls on these openings, where you can just see the angle, that there is an angle from the way the light falls in. And you also have the door, the main kind of doorway, which is a singular portal formed over here, and the interior of the brise-soleil, which kind of is a set of fenestrations in some sense. And we didn't have any pictures of Milonas, so we can move on to Sabarmati, where we actually have quite a few. So I think the most iconic doors when you think of Sabarmati are these sort of pivoted doors, where the pivot is sort of on in the middle of a door, or either at the complete center or somewhat off center like this. So one beautiful thing that this does is when you kind of open it up, it doesn't just sort of go flush against a wall or kind of hide itself. It does create a new space just by the way it kind of turns on itself, and you can see the sort of members, like the vertical member, diagonal bracing member, and then the rest of it forming the enclosure. And then you have these grilled ones, and you can see some semblance of an arch over them. And kind of, Ahmedabad still has a lot of heat, so you do have the chhajja and the grilling. But the way the chhajja isn't just a sort of projection, but you actually can see these sort of little members kind of dotting the edge of it. So that's very interesting. And then you have the little grill. A lot of grills in Ahmedabad, which was some of the things we noticed as a whole. And then you have some exterior views of these windows where there's these kind of grillings and the doors kind of fit seamlessly in this sort of frame. So a lot of the fenestrations are also really framed, which I'll get to in further slides. But you can really see that the way the red kind of creates its own kind of volume in the white, and then you have these sort of grillings, and the door fits very seamlessly within these two columns. And then have the roofing. And this is a zoom out of the same window with a little more context to it and a window above it. So the way the language of the windows has been maintained despite the different size of the opening. And yeah, this is the kind of framing. So even where the door is kind of set back, you still have the sort of frame in the frame of the structure in front of it. So how it fits along the columns and like the way it's positioned according to the staircase, so your movement. And then you have another set of grilling to the left, where again you have these sort of jali work on the top, and then these operable windows with either glass or wood on here. So that was again another interesting way how it gets framed while it's being set back by the structure of the building or just the plinth and the walls even. And again, more framing of the windows, and yeah, this kind of door was really interesting where you have these members at the bottom, kind of creating a door with a gate-like structure, and another sort of way of framing it from the inside rather than the outside from a courtyard. And a rather typical panel door with a little grill over it, but still the way it kind of fits into the red aesthetics of the thing. So with Sabarmati, the red color of the fenestrations is really something that stands out from most of them, except for the pivoted ones. You really have this sort of rich red sense of the fenestrations, which contrasts with the kind of white of the walls, and it goes along with some of the structural members and the overhangs, which kind of really defines them. While not in a formal sense, still the kind of coloring has a certain hierarchy towards it. And just a few more shots of the windows, the double windows, which is you see a full length version of it in the poles. I think we may have a picture of those later on, but yeah, the double windows. And this is B.V. Doshi's office. So not many pictures, but you can kind of see these sort of dome-shaped clerestories for his office, which really brought in a lot of light. And then how it gets broken up into like this sort of the two sort of quarters of a circle, and then this central sort of portal. And this is a view from the bottom, and then you also have these sort of windows. We tried our best to include the most of Sangath with the pictures we had, but yes. The Institute of Indology, V.V. Doshi. Here you have these sort of angular form, and along the bottom, and then you start rising upwards, where you start having the. So one thing you have to you can also see is that these kind of frames really define the structure as a whole, and then you have the sorry, ouch, sorry. So yeah, these structures really kind of define the frame as a whole, and then behind them you have to set back. So you have the doors and the windows. Sorry. Hello, am I audible?
Shravan, suddenly your voice has we've lost you.
I'll just
There's
try
a lot of
switching.
background
Someone else can take over, na? I mean, any of the others who have made this presentation.
I'll just try switching in a second my audio.
Now it's better.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So the way these doors are positioned again has a similar sort of pivot as we saw in Sabarmati. And you also have these sort of clerestories which are heavily shaded, which bring in a really soft sense of light from what I remember. Yeah. And then you also have these sort of windows along the door, which again, the idea of the framing of the door is really important, where the doors sort of are really fitting into a larger set of fenestrations very seamlessly. And then these louvers on top in this other picture, you can see these louvers, which is really dark, but we're trying to find a picture with this sort of louvers really stood out. Yes. And then you have these sort of thin openings along the sides. I think this is for the staircase, right? Yeah, staircase. And then you have the particular corridors in the higher floors where you have the doors and windows again set back. So the idea of how the doors are when they're against the facade versus when they're set back from the facade. And a few more pictures. And Tagore Memorial Hall, where we didn't find many pictures, but we did find some of the fenestrations really interesting. Like again, the ones that are sort of along the facade, like these really small dotted along the back facade. And then you also have these sort of the front facade with a sort of inset, and then you have the doors again really set back. And the way these are sort of carved into the structure. And just back view, so you see this kind of a portal acting out here. And Mahatma Gandhi Labour Institute, which I felt personally, I felt it's had a very similar language towards Sankhat in terms of one of these windows, which is like this dome. I am not sure if this was a sort of colored glass or whether there was something else going on. But yeah, you have this sort of dome and you see the kind of members being marked around it and defining a sort of, defining the window a bit more than just the curve. Then you have some other views of that. And these sort of windows again. This is the and the play of light when it comes to these sort of doors, the sort of sliding doors mounted on the wheels with the grills marked out. You still see you see a strong sense of the play of light over here, especially in this picture when you look at the walls and the floor and the dark colors contrasting the sort of light that comes in and the way the grilling worked out. IIM has its very iconic sort of windows. So we can start with this sort of arch over here, where you have a portal for the door, and then this arch is kind of supporting the brick arch that's creating another window, almost like a clerestory on it. No, that's sorry, not the clerestory window, but yeah. And of course, you can't mention IIM without its sort of signature circular arches. So that you have the semicircles here, you have these sort of openings over here with the balcony, with the railing and the corridors, and its sort of signature eye, which you can see much more clearly here. So the sort of eye-like Louis Kahn famous circular openings, and the way the bricks sort of transfer the loads around it, and the bricks essentially rotating 360 degrees each brick in that sense. And you can actually see how the load could transfer along with the seam of the bricks. And yeah. Then a few more pictures of these sort of circular windows, which have really defined the structure over time, along with its squared breaks. And then you also have these sort of the more square windows, which it does still have, but how the sort of services are also placed along it with the AC ducts and the AC box, the box ACs. Yeah, and one of the doors in the corridor. Just a few more pictures of IIM, and here you
Shravan,
have a
can you
more.
allow someone else to speak also?
We actually thought it'd be better if one person presents just to avoid confusion for the betterment of the class in understanding. So, yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, great. Oh, and with this portal, you can also see the sort of way the bricks that were supporting it kind of give themselves their own identity with the angles sort of contrasting the horizontal lines. You have these vertical diagonals sort of popping out. And then you have sept. So you have these huge sort of windows which bring in a lot of light in the studio. And I think whenever we've seen sept, we have in class, the faculty's always been talking about the lighting that sort of comes in these studios and the way it's sort of just this brilliant sort of light coming into these huge lights. So you can see it here, the timber members sort of that support it, but also like just the way the fins and the little grill bits between it. It's not a grill per se, but still the members between it and the grills that support it. And yeah, then you have these sort of the fenestrations where there's no particular door, but you can still see a sort of portal opening out. And these sort of, again, these doors that kind of you see over here at the top above the staircase. And this sort of entrance being framed by the beam and walls themselves. And you have these louvered windows on top, and then you have these sort of more standard windows of a box over here. More of the louvers on the ground level and the top level. Yeah, some more doorless sort of portals, I would say. And the pole houses, while not being institutional in level, we found a few certain interesting features about them which could be applied to other doors as well. So first you have the idea that even though it's just one sort of door, there's still so much that can be done to it. You have these sort of intricate carvings, you have the way that it's not really fully rectangular either. You have these sort of corner details that's just fully placed within an arch. So the way of fenestration can be defined, even if it's just a simple sort of entrance, you can still do so much with the kind of doors that you have in a building, even like just from going from one room to another, if not the main entrance. And yeah, the point of the framing, how they're placed within, alongside several other windows or within these sets of columns or, below a balcony and then the way the columns are treated around it. So just the idea that how even out the house fenestration can be defined by so much more if you'll step back and look at the members around it as well and how they interact with it and whether they speak the same language or not. So yeah, that's it from us. Would anyone else like to add anything, or did I cover everything we discussed last night? I think I did then. Would the faculty like to say anything about them? Should I
Oh
move
yeah,
to a particular?
I have lots to say, but Jimmy, you want to say anything?
No, I think Ainsley, I would
Okay.
only like to say a couple of things. I would say that initially, I would say not in, initially, I would like to say that in some sense, I would say KRVI students are lucky that in the initial years, faculty, Ainsley particularly, took initiatives of taking you all to somewhere like Ahmedabad, where there is so much of exposure available. I clearly remember as when I was a student, I had to take the initiative ourselves. So a couple of us, I remember six of us that as between the first year and the second year break, we took the initiative of going there and we had nobody to guide us. Yeah, we did it all by ourselves but naturally we missed and we learned over the years. Over the years, some of my classmates may have never seen the things that perhaps I even. Thankfully, I was in academics, so I kept going to Ahmedabad over and over. But I think you all are lucky enough, and particularly lucky this batch that, unlike the present two batches due to COVID are not able to go anywhere. So I think this exposure will always remain with you, and let's make the best of it by applying it. I'll come to it a little later. Inslee, please go ahead.
Okay. So I think thanks, Shravan and the team. Now, whoever was there, I think I saw Aram's name and whoever else kind of made this presentation.
I'm going to
The
send in the names on the
Yeah.
faculty group. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks to you all for putting this together. The only thing is, what I found is that Shravan, you are focusing on design. Okay, you are focusing on design of the placement of a door and window. Okay, which is good, and all of you must note that a door and a window is not just an opening in the wall. If you look at the traditional architecture in India and across the world, it is a space, it is a place for transition between, or a buffer between the outside and the inside. So in terms of a larger design idea, it is that place or space. Okay, so in some cases, if you look at the Hawa Mahal, you'll get a Jaroka there where a person can sit. If you look at this pole image which is on our screen, it actually becomes a transition place between the inside and the outside. It is also a buffer which allows for the elements of climate to kind of take over that space during the monsoon or become a space for people to rest, etc., during the hot summer sun, etc. So that's the designed intent. But if you understand, if you want to design a door or a window, Shravan, can you go back to Charles Correa's door, Charles Correa's door in Sabarmati Ashram? And if you want to actually design a door and a window, yeah, that one, yeah, okay. Fundamentally, put it full screen, please. Fundamentally, if you remember what I think Mamta, Rutika, myself, and I don't remember who were the faculty with us in construction. I think Neeraj was also there, but I'm not too sure. If you fundamentally look at what a door is, there is this, the ledges, the bracing, and the battens. Okay. And it's the design intent of the door where it transforms into something else. Okay. So in this door done by Charles Correa and Sabarmati Ashram, you can see the pivot is basically under that vertical style. Okay. Yeah. Point it out. Yeah. That's where the pivot is. Okay. The bracing is across the door. And the panels are what it is. You can actually see the panels. So the frame of the door is concrete and brick. Okay. It's concrete and brick. But the stiles have become actually the frame for the shutter. So you have to understand the fundamental aspects of a door. Okay. The style, okay, the rails, and the bracing, and then whatever comes in as the infill, whether it's wood, glass, plywood, laminate, plastic, whatever, stained glass, etc. These are the fundamentals of any door and window. You cannot mess with that. And when you design a door or a window, you have to understand the forces which the door or window has to kind of withstand, the climatic aspects which the door or window have to withstand, and hence the palette of materials. Okay, hence the palette of materials. So interestingly, if you start studying all the doors, like what Shravan has shown you, I mean, this team has shown you, you'll understand that there are different aspects of climate which are taken into consideration. Very often, I mean, in practice, when we make an opening to get in light, the quality of light in India is so sharp that we often have to squint our eyes. While in Europe, or it is so subdued, and the angle of the sun is so low that you do not get that sharp light. So automatically, like in Sangat, when you actually do that light kind of a thing, over a period of time, you realize that there's too much light, and then someone suggests, why don't you put a film on it, and you get some strange color. Okay, so you have to understand that. So that's another thing. Another thing in urban areas is this concern for security. So automatically, even in Sangat, when you saw that grill starts coming in, yeah, and that becomes another way in which you design the opening and kind of incorporate a grill. Okay, so where do the supports of the grill come? What are the MS kind of features? Blah blah blah. This, that, and the other is something which you need to talk about. Okay, the uh, next two issues is, one is the building. Understand, the building has to be closed. Okay, any project, the building has to be closed. So when you make these large openings, as you saw in Gandhi Labor, over a period of time they've actually put a grill where you can actually shut it off. Okay, so please understand that all your buildings have to be closed at some point of time. Maybe if it's an internal public space, and there's a function at the amphitheater, you don't want people, strolling into the rest of the private spaces. So automatically that also happens. Okay. So you have to understand that aspect of it. And the last thing which I want to say is that in today's day and age, everyone just talks about aluminum sliding windows, okay, which have no character at all. Okay. Another aspect of it, the cost of aluminum sliding windows is much more cheaper than any woodwork which you do. So as architects designing buildings, we have a challenge. We have a challenge because when you talk about aluminum sliding windows, which comes at 260 rupees a square foot or somewhere thereabouts, it can nowhere compare to the woodwork which you require to do. Okay, then the next issue is that if you have to kind of accept that, and if you have to accept a grill which is a security, do you use the grill like a veil to cover the character of that ordinary character of the aluminum sliding window, etc., etc. So today we have finishes in the market where you do a UPVC windows, and the UPVC coating can look like wood. Okay. So when you say sliding windows and you say aluminum, nowadays people say, no, no, we don't want aluminum, we want UPVC, and you do that wood finish. So these are the newer products, but the idea of a window, like in the pole houses where you have the lower part which can be open, the upper part can be open, the lower part can be shut, etc., etc. That's something to think about. But these are the concerns. These are the concerns all of us face as architects in the contemporary world. Okay, the cost is one large issue, and automatically it becomes one of the deciding factors of what material you choose for your doors and windows. Like for example, you get ready-made flush doors which are there, and then the client will say, "Arey, but why are you doing all of this? There's no maintenance, you don't get this, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other." Many of your projects are not in urban areas. Okay, so automatically you have the possibility of using local craftsmen to kind of get involved in this whole process. So I mean, in some sense, your architecture is also contributing to the livelihood of the craftsmen there. So you can look at this, and that's where architects also talk about this larger engagement with other aspects of society. So I mean, these are the few points which I want you to think about, and you need to design this with that lens. Okay, the idea of understanding the load transfers, the styles, the rails, and the bracing and the panel infill for both the windows and the doors, and of course the framing which is required for each of the shutters. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Jimmy, you want to
Any,
add on?
anybody else? Dharmesh, you've been in Ahmedabad for
Yeah.
long. Anybody
Uh,
else would like
yeah.
to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say something very short. I think NC has covered everything. Even I was about to say the same. Maybe if there were actually focus, or at least someone else in the group would have taken the effort to detail out a particular thing, or let's say specifically given a brief about why this kind of window or an opening could be used for that particular structure. It looked more like a design presentation where you just speaking on the feature rather than understanding why the designer must have put this here specifically. So very smartly, Ainsley has explained about the door at the Sabarmati Ashram, where it's a simple ledge batten glazed door that we probably study in the first year or the second year of school, but we never realize if the detail that we've always seen is the typical hinge door. A very simple detail, just by replacing the mechanism, what Korea would be able to achieve was uh, kind of modularity in the sense that if you take out the door, it's a clear opening, and if you, it's like easily replaceable. The sizes, the kind of uh, finish around it. There's not too much of things happening, and that sleekness of a fixture to be done. A door hanging on a simple single mechanism. That is what that should be worth mentioning. If you look at Doshi's structure, his office and the Labor Institute, and please, Shravan, to stop calling them domes. They are volts. They are not domes. So when you fit window in a volt, we do structures with not standard slabs, or let's say not flat slabs for that matter. If we want to redesign the roof in some way, if we have the possibility of having a volt, an arched opening, how do you do that? So the good thing is the examples are already there, and it's not like it has been done yesterday, a year back, or maybe 5 years ago. It's done at a time where just to make a difference. But yeah, then again, so what do we learn? All of that, looking at all of that, and then going to aluminium it's horrid. But yeah, I mean, if we still can use wood, and then the last example of the pole houses, or probably any native house that you go into Rajasthan or Gujarat, I think the best part of it was the plinth. There's a small gate to those four steps, plinth steps. Speaking of doors and windows as openings, but there is no requirement. It is not even an opening. Let's say it's a gate to the house, but how beautifully they have arranged it, that small shutter, in a way that it mimics the railing, the grill, and it doesn't look out of context. You'd say what kind of security is needed for this four steps. It's a place to sit, to gather in the evening. It's an otla, so they have this thing, Gujaratis or specifically, and just that small thing to have. It's so that is one thing. When you do not compulsorily need to introduce fixtures, let's say when there is no opening, but still using shutters, using doorways as a feature, and yet making it look integral to the entire facade. So yeah, it's good. It's good to look at the images. But yeah, how they have been used and probably how we can use it in a studio, or let's say if we were designing something today, is what would have been better to come out from these students. But I guess we'd see that in their portfolios finally. So yeah, good to see so many things around.
Uh,
Yes, Jimmy.
Can I
Oh,
just add two things which I forgot? One is the
yes.
lockability of this windows and doors. Okay, so the hardware is very important, the lockability. And the second thing is maintenance. So after a period of time, if any of the members deteriorates, how are you going to repair it? These are very simple doors and windows, etc., etc. But very often today, architects put in different materials. Sometimes you can even put a stone panel within the shutter. So you have people doing that. You have stone which is cut, which is very thin. If you look at the windows made in Goa, the shells, the oyster shells, were cut, were actually used as panels within these vertical kind of things. So there are different materials. The question is, how do you maintain it and replace it if it breaks? So think about the lockability and think about the maintenance. Yeah. Sorry. Anyone else wants to say?
Yeah,
Jimmy?
anybody else from the group before I put in some concluding comments? I would like to say that I like that you all did start with the idea of the skylight. Yeah, both at what I thought was very intriguing is that the idea that when you have a huge height, both at the mill owners as well as at SEPT, yeah, and that yeah, Shravan rightly said that usually faculty talk about the quality of light that comes into the studios from those north light windows. Yeah, and how it fills up huge volumes with the kind of light that is there, and yeah, and as rightly portrayed by yeah the that the weather there is much harsher, and these windows, and in that sense, you have now seen all strategies of how windows can help create a kind of a skin that I'm coming to next. But bottom line is that we all our projects have these opportunities by way of large volumes, and most of us are just dealing with them by putting big masonry walls and not thinking about so to say um, getting being able to detail those walls out well. Yeah, large fixed windows, large openings that can get light into them, be it in the auditorium, be it in the lobby areas, be it in public areas, can actually and I do not know if you now that you've experienced, yeah, you'd be able to understand best what they can do. Yeah, just lifting up the roof at a particular age, be it at sept or be it at mill owners. You've seen at mill owners how the roof is lifted off from the ceiling in order at the terrace level in order to bring that quality of light, and then all those beams are made inverted such that you have an internal soffit that can be lit and be appreciated. In mill owners, all those roof beams are inverted in the photograph as you've seen at the terrace level, such that the lower soffit is entirely plain and the light that comes in washes the entire soffit of the roof. So this this access so I think this opportunity is available with us, considering the scale that we are dealing with, considering the volumes that we are dealing with, and most important of all, now we have technologies where I don't need, if I have a high window, I don't need to go about having a rope or some lever or something to pull the curtains across or to be able to shut them. Today, with so much of mechanized ways of dealing with fenestrations, we can easily shut off these openings. Yeah, as and when we don't want light to come in, yeah, be it performance areas. But other than that, during otherwise these windows work wonderfully well during rehearsal times, during, let me tell you, an auditorium is used most of the time for rehearsals other than the show. Yeah. And when you go into for rehearsals, not everybody is keen to allow you to use the entire air conditioning, the allow you to open all the lights, yeah, and things like that. Yeah. Allowing you to use the auditorium for a rehearsal in some sense is being kind enough to do that. If you're going to use facilities of air conditioning and lighting, yeah, then uh, but naturally, yeah, you're going to be expected to pay additional, and it may become a little unsustainable for small groups who want to use these areas for rehearsal before the main show and things like that. I've seen this particularly. Yeah. So that's one part to it. The other, as Ainsley rightly pointed out, harsh weather. Yeah. The idea of creating a skin, and in that skin, how do you deal with the idea of fenestration? How do you deal with the idea of openings? Nobody likes to open a window and see lures in front. Okay. Or nobody wants and on the other hand, nobody wants to have a window, be able to keep a window shut because the rain comes in or the sun comes in during the late afternoons and early evenings. So how do you create this buffer? How do you create this skin so that you can enjoy the weather? However harsh the weather, maybe you would like to get soft light in. You like the breeze to come in without the rain. These are aspects that you have to think about, for which you may have to create a skin, for which you have to be in a position to create a secondary layer and do it in a manner whereby the openings don't get lost out. Yeah, the openings can yet be there. The light can yet filter in. Yeah, the breeze can yet come in. Yeah, I've also found many people, many students do not understand that the corners of the building are so important. Corners of the building, actually, when you approach a building, it is the corner that you see first. Corner within the building, it is the corner that gives you a larger scope of your larger view of the surroundings should you stand there. Yeah, it's the corner that allows you to be able to exploit and be able to see. And most of the time we have toilets put in corners. Toilets are something that are to be tucked away. How do you tuck something away? You tuck toilets in between two or more blocks such that their presence is felt minimum, or its presence is not felt at all, or it can be as camouflaged as possible. I have never seen an interesting toilet block with toilet windows or louvers or ducts whatsoever that adds character to a building. I'm at aghast to find numerous students and continuously reminding students of not putting toilet blocks along the corner, because those are opportunities that we are losing out. So that's one thing. And last of the lot, and we are now at a stage. This is for everybody, both guides and students. We are at a stage just after a marking, and we should be in a position. Yeah, and I just see 60 students on board. 60, all of us. That means 54 students on board. Is really sad. Kima, if you can download the attendance, yeah, that would be a help such that we can then take care of people who have taken today's morning session lightly. But the thing is that
Means,
uh,
sorry, but I can't download because it's the calendar meeting. You will only have the rights to download the attendance.
okay, I'll do
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing is that now is the time. This is for most guides and students. Now is the time to take the building to and to a completely new to a complete level of detailing. That means that every student who has a salient feature in his building preferably should be in a position to detail that out, exploit that, look at all kinds of possibilities that are there. Yeah, that is why this presentation on fenestrations is important, not only to make schedule for the plans, but to also see that when they start working with their strip sections, should it encourage them to detail out these windows, skylights, roof lights, whatever that there, to a greater extent? Think about the mechanism that works with that. So on one hand, the student is going about detailing. On one hand, he's doing the mundane work of on one hand, he's doing the mundane work of detailing the plans out by way of putting levels, dimensioning, all kinds of schedules. Yeah, all of that on one hand, because that submission is going to be no sooner than later, other than the smaller submissions on acoustics and sight lines and things like that. But on the other hand, he has now the time, or not now the possibility that he can go about so to say, he can go about detailing out, he can go about detailing out he can go about detailing out the salient features of his building. Yeah. So if you find students who can be encouraged to make models, you can find if you find students who can be initiated into the discussion of what the salient feature about his project is all about, and should or he or she go about exploring that, this is the right time. This is the right time till the second week of September, when a submission again comes back to the fore and they are only dealing with mundane submission requirements. This is the time whereby, while they are doing plan and section detailing, on the other hand, they have the possibilities to look at uh, be it structural, fenestration, any kind of detail that can accentuate the experience of the building to a new level. Yeah, I hope I have been able to throw light on what is expected in this and the coming week. Beyond that, if anybody has any doubt, can feel free to ask, or else we can leave. It's already 9. We can leave and join our personal channels.
No, are there any questions from the students? Are there any questions? Because these are very important aspects, and if you realize why we stressing on this is because these windows and doors give character to the space making and the building itself. And please understand that even if you have a large project, even if you have a very large project, uh, the you don't have 40 windows, 40 types of windows. You'll have modules of that one type which is repeated across the building. You'll have a maximum of 3 or 5 doors. Okay, one for the main door, one for some other doors, one which are fire rated doors or something like that. So please understand, you don't have every opening cannot become a door of a different size. So there's a certain modularity to this whole idea of making doors and windows. Okay, so you'll see the same because it adds character. Okay, it's like the DNA of the building. So you have to understand that that module works at different scales, etc., etc. So if you have to rationalize it as a designer, as an architect, to these various kind of sizes. Okay, you have to do that. And locking and maintenance, okay, is something which you have to think about as a designer as well. So don't leave that out. And you'll see that probably today when you design something for this building, which you are doing, and one of the challenges is, as Jimmy mentioned, that in some places you require air conditioning and sometimes you do not want air conditioning. Okay, how do you kind of work this out? And if you looked at some of the older doors, you had these louvers. If you look at the doors in or windows in Mumbai, colonial Mumbai, you'll had these louvers which had these rails which you could adjust to open and shut because of the hot humid climate in Mumbai. So please understand the nuances of climate and the environment and design these openings. So these north lights which you are seeing are facing the north direction. You never get sunlight, but you get subdued light into the studios. And this is one of the passive ways in which you can save energy. Okay, rather than, so during when we were in SEPT, we never required any lights to be switched on during the day, okay, because of this. So if you can see from this image, only those alcoves there on the lower level, because they're within a dark space, you needed lights. But the rest of the time you could actually use this light. And at that point of time it was very important, because we used to use drafting. Okay, so we used to draft on the board, so you wanted light from the top north left hand side, so that there's no shadow on your sheet. So understand the nuances and then design accordingly. Don't just put openings whatever. And that's when you will find this whole profession so fulfilling, to kind of design. You all are designers, you all are not, you all are not engineers, you all are not project managers. Firstly, you all are being designers as architects and making a choice of materials. Like in this case, these are MS members which are used for framing. You can choose wood, you can choose aluminum, you can choose various things, but please understand the reason why it is there. For example, these windows at SEPT, if you can see the lower part, they are pivoted horizontally. Okay, so they can be opened. Those angular windows are so damn difficult to clean. Okay, so once in a way we would see a peon come up and climb up and stand up there and clean them. And those windows at top again, which are pivoted horizontally, would become another task to clean. Okay, but understand how do you maintain all this kind of thing, understand the sizes of glass which are available, etc., etc., and then you can get a great project. Yeah, I think I've given enough gyan. Clear? Students, any questions or anything?
Thanks, Ainsley. Thanks for the group of students who put it up at the last minute. Next week, I think we'll be seeing the last of the presentations by Neeraj. Since Neeraj was out, I thought, yeah, I'll give him a breather. He, it was nice of him to come and ask me yesterday that should he make the presentation for today. And I said, no, I have already planned a presentation by the students. You can do it next week. So next week will be the last of the presentations by Neeraj, and then, but naturally we'll use all the classes to interact with you more closely.
Yeah, but
Till then,
it's like now you have to sit down and just churn out the work. Yeah, and make changes. Yeah. Okay.
the guide should know that as part of the one of the construction classes, I have shown the entire class the quantum of work that is expected. That includes electrical drawings, all kinds of strip sections, all kinds of detail sections, detail elevations, and the BOQ. But naturally, the entire superstructure of the BOQ was covered yesterday by us in the construction class. So now if guides would like to follow up on these comparatively light days of inquiring or giving them working studios, they can always sit and work out the BOQ for the entire superstructure. Now all that will be left will be then finishing materials and finishings for various aspects of the building. Yeah, but superstructure, column beam, brickwork, roof work, metal works, all that can be calculated by the students in detail. It has been covered yesterday. Most people didn't have doubts. Yeah, those who had different materials took the opportunity to inquire that. So I would request guides that as and when students are not interacting, they are told to not waste time. Instead, sit individually and work on their BOQs or on their drawings, because the quantum of work expected is pretty high. Yeah, Meenal, would you like to brief us with regards to the smaller submissions that are expected, both on sight lines and acoustic? When is that? On the ones for acoustical panel design as well as sight lines, sight and sound lines?
Okay, so I mean, before we close, please understand that you'll were given chances to upgrade your work in terms of grades. I mean, but this cannot go on uh, eternally. So I mean, if you all had to upgrade, please show it to your guides, upgrade the work, and we close the mark for that date. we'll have other gradings which are scheduled. Yeah, so please do that. All those who have been ill, medical, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, please do that. Yep. Okay.
No, but I mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
taking of the work will not go on and on. It will be like if today is the submission, next time will be one time given to you, not throughout the year. So we are finished with the floor plan, the ground floor stuff, and now we will proceed ahead. Thank you
Okay.
guys.
Okay. Bye. Take care. We'll
Bye-bye.
meet in our groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks for the presentation,
Bye.
guys. Bye.